So with this lesson, you're going to be learning about two sentence particles, the to sentence particle and the ya sentence particle. Both these sentence particles allow you to list nouns. We're going to be talking about the differences between the to sentence particle and the ya sentence particle, but before we go into that, we need to make sure that you understand the to sentence particle. The to sentence particle allows you to list a concrete list. What that means is that the nouns that are listed using the sentence particle to are all items that make up the full list. So here's an example. If I say, リンゴとオレンジが好きです。リンゴとオレンジが好きです。This means I like apples and oranges. But the key thing here is that the apples and oranges, or リンゴとオレンジ, is a concrete list. In other words, these two items make up the entire list. And the list in this case are the fruits that you like. So if you use the to sentence particle, you are specifically saying, I like apples and oranges. And there's nothing else in this list. It's just apples and oranges. Now let's take a look at the sentence particle ya. The sentence particle ya does the exact same thing. However, each item in the list are just examples. So if I say リンゴやオレンジが好きです instead of リンゴとオレンジが好きです that means that リンゴ or apple or オレンジ or orange are just examples of the fruits that you like. So going back to the sentence particle to, the items in this list are concrete and they make one full package. Apples and oranges. However, when you use the ya sentence particle, each item in the list are just examples. I like fruits like apples and oranges. リンゴやオレンジが好きです。Let me give you an example situation. So if someone asks you, カナダは何が有名ですか? カナダは何が有名ですか? That is, what's famous in Canada? And I can reply to this by saying, カナダはメープルシロップやビーバーテールが有名です。And by the way, Beaver Tails is just a donut company from Canada. Now in this sentence, I use the sentence particle ya. And that's because maple syrup and beaver tails are just examples of what's famous in Canada, right? They're not the only things that make Canada famous. And therefore, I use the sentence particle ya. If I used the sentence particle to, then this would be a concrete list, and I'm only saying that beaver tails and maple syrup are the only things that are famous in Canada, which is not true. It is important to distinguish between the to sentence particle and the ya sentence particle because people make these mistakes. So if your mom asks you to get carrots and onions, she's going to say 人参と玉ねぎを買ってきて. And that would mean, can you please go get carrots and onions specifically? It's a concrete list and she wants you to get onions and carrots. So another way of saying ya is toka, but actually toka is a bit more casual. So instead of using ya, you could use toka. 人参とかベーコンを買いました。スーパーで人参とかベーコンを買いました。So instead of using the ya sentence particle here, we just use toka and it sounds more casual. And toka again allows you to list examples. And so if someone asks you, どんなバンドが好きですか? どんなバンドが好きですか? What kind of bands do you like? I can say, ワンオクとかが好きです. And that would mean, I like bands like One OK Rock. Now let's move on to the second part of this lesson. In this second part, we're going to learn about conjugating verbs. Now, we already did this kind of with the must lesson that I did earlier, but for this, we're just going to learn conjugations from the dictionary form of verbs. So to get started, the dictionary form of verbs is just the present affirmative. So for example, 行く, 泳ぐ, 食べる, and so forth. These are all present affirmative or just the dictionary form of verbs. Now let's change things up. Let's talk about the present negative of verbs. The present negative of 飲む, which is to drink, is 飲まない. So I drink, to I don't drink. Let's learn about the conjugations. So again, we learned about this earlier, but there are two types of verbs that you really need to know, which are the ru verbs and the u verbs. And depending on what type of verb it is, the conjugation steps are going to be different. So nomu is a u verb, and therefore what we have to do is take out the u vowel and replace it with the a vowel. So nomu will turn to noma, and then we attach nai, nomanai. And it is a good thing to note that the nai at the end will kind of indicate if it is negative or not. If you hear nai, it's going to be the negative. Here's another example. Taberu. Taberu is a famous ru verb that always comes up in examples. So for ru verbs, you take out the last ru. So it becomes taberu to tabe. And then you just attach nai, tabenai. So it's very simple. And this pattern goes on with all types of conjugations. So I want you to memorize this. Now there are some exceptions such as kuru. Kuru will turn to konai. And suru becomes shinai. So please note that down. Now let's talk about the past tense or the past affirmative. So if I say something like nomu to nonda, which is I drink to I drank, this is going to be the past affirmative. Now for this conjugation, it's going to be a bit more complicated. You can't really just categorize it with ru and u verbs. Now the ru verbs are actually fine, but there's more categories with the u verbs. Before we get to the different types of u verbs, let's get ru verbs out of the way. So with the ru verbs, all you have to do is take out the ru and add ta. So taberu will become tabeta. That's pretty simple. U verbs that end with su, such as nokosu. What we have to do with this is we have to change the u vowel to the i vowel. So su would become shi, nokoshi, and then you add ta, nokoshita. With u verbs that end with ku or gu, such as aruku, all you have to do is take out the ku and gu and then add ita. So aruku becomes aru, and then you add ita, aruita. Verbs ending with bu, nu, or mu, for example, asobu, all you have to do is take out the bu and then add nda, asobu to asonda. With u verbs that end with tsu, ru, and u, all you have to do is take out the last hiragana and add ta with the small tsu. An example would be utsu, which is to hit. All you have to do is take out the tsu and then add ta with the small tsu. Utsu to utta. Now there's some exceptions such as iku, which becomes itta, kuru, which becomes kita, and suru, which becomes shita. Now let's move on to the past negative. So another example would be taberu to tabenakatta. So that would become I eat to I haven't ate. Taberu to tabenakatta. Now for the past negative, what you first have to do is follow the steps for the present negative, which I just talked about. Remove the i and then add katta. So an example of this would be kiku, which becomes kikanai, which is the present negative. Take out the i, which is kikana, and then you can add katta, kikanakatta. And lastly, the volitional form. The volitional just means let's do something or let's do whatever. Taberu becomes tabeyo. I eat to let's eat. So again, with the ru verbs, take out the ru and then add yo. And for the u verbs, all you have to do is change the u vowel to the o vowel. So iku, for example, becomes iko, and then you can add u. So iko. And of course, the exceptions, kuru becomes koyo, and suru becomes shio. Now that's pretty much the whole lesson for today. What you've learned are the listing particles to and ya, and also the basic conjugation steps for verbs. If you have any questions, make sure to ask down below. And I would also like to thank all my subscribers, because I've actually reached 1,000 subscribers in about 4 months, which I find quite impressive. But I will take this as motivation, and I'll make sure to upload more Japanese videos for you guys in the future. But until next time, mata ne!